Welcome to today's 20-minute meditation. I'll start with a quote from the Harikan RT. Abode of truth, consciousness, and eternal bliss. Thou art without all, but always residing in the heart. Thy image is full of compassion and so beautiful. I offer light to the Holy Supreme Guru, Lord of Mercy.
have a discourse from the Chandipat by Swami Satchidananda Saraswati. And if you remember last week, we were talking about the different thoughts. So in most of these stories, in many of the holy books, there's often wars. And I really appreciate Swamiji because he brings that to the realization that it's really the war within ourselves, being divine beings. What is it that pulls us from that constant realization of the divine? So last week we were looking at some of the thoughts, like too much and too little, hypocrisy, self-deceit, all the different things that we invest our thoughts and energy in that keep us from remembering the divine. So now we're going to meet some more thoughts. The first is a meditation. The radiant body of the Mother of the Universe has that magnificence of 1,000 rising suns. She is draped in a sari of red silk. Around her neck is a garland of red skulls. Her 2 breasts have been colored with red sandal paste. In her 4 lotus-like hands, she holds a rosary and shows the mudras of knowledge, fearlessness, and granting of boons. Her 3 eyes are shining, and her bud-like mouth is extremely beautiful. Upon her head sits a crown of jewels in which the moon is situated, and she is resting upon a lotus seat. With unlimited devotion, I bow to that goddess. When the great thoughts saw that their forces were being destroyed, that heroic general, devoid of clear understanding, in great anger proceeded to battle with the Mother of the Universe. That thought rained upon the goddess a cloud of arrows of various doubts, as plentiful as the waters that fall from a cloud upon Mount Meru. Then the goddess fired such a multitude of arrows that cut his arrows into pieces, and also killed his horses and his charioteer. With this she also cut his bow and his exceedingly high banner. After cutting his bow, she pierced his body with her arrows. Losing his bow, chariot, horses, and charioteer, that thought took up his sword and shield and ran after the goddess. With the sharp edge of his sword, he struck the lion on his head, and with great speed he gave a blow to the goddess on her left arm. When that sword touched her body, it broke into pieces, and that angry thought of many considerations took a pike in his hand. And that great thought threw that glaring pike at the excellent one beyond time, the Divine Mother, just as the sun fills the heavens with dazzling luster. When the goddess saw the pike coming at her, she too let loose her pike, which split his weapon into numerous pieces, and devoid of clear understanding, gave up his life. After the death of that valiant general in the army of the great ego, devoid of clear understanding, who had been the source of affliction to many gods, the next thought, fickleness, approached, mounted on an elephant. He attacked the goddess from above with his energy, but the Mother of the Universe, with the shout of her mantra, wounded him, and deprived of light, the energy fell to the earth. When he found that his energy was broken, fickleness became intensely angry. Now he threw his pike at her, but the goddess cut it off with her arrows. In all of this, the lion of the goddess jumped upon the head of the elephant and began an intensive battle with that thought of fickleness. Those two fought, and the elephant fell to the ground. Then they rose in excessive rage and began to fight again with fierce blows. Thereafter, with great speed, the lion leaped into the atmosphere and, falling from the sky, severed the head of fickleness from his body. Another thought, haughtiness, was slain by the goddess with stones and trees in that battlefield, and striking with his paws and biting with his teeth, the lion brought down disbelief. Striking angrily with her club, the goddess reduced arrogance to powder. Memories, another strong thought that pulls us from the Divine Mother and our centered place of bliss. Memories was cut by the sword, and anxiety and blindness also by her arrows. Violent temper and passion and the great deceiver, too, were slain by the three-eyed seer of all. Hypocrisy's head was cut by the sword, and irresistible temptation and foul mouth were both sent to the kingdom of death by her arrows. Seeing his army thus being destroyed, the great ego, Mahesura, assumed the form of a buffalo, and he himself began to terrify the troops of the goddess. Sometimes he fought with his snout, sometimes kicking with his hoofs, sometimes hitting with his tail, sometimes whirling around while ripping with his horns. With great speed and great war cry, his breath puffing in exertion, he scattered the troops over the ground. Having laid low the troops of the Divine Mother's army, that huge thought advanced to kill the lion of the goddess. Then the Mother of the universe approached, that great evil one. The great ego became very angry. He kicked the earth with his hoofs and raised large mountains with his horns and threw them aside as he roared. With the great speed of this thought, the earth split in fear. His tail lashed the sea of desire, causing the waters to flood the earth. Tossing about his horns, he dashed and split the clouds to pieces, and cast up by the violent speed of his breath winds, mountains fell from the sky. And waging battle in that great anger, the great thought advanced toward her, the Mother of the universe, she who tears thought apart. And so she also assumed anger and prepared to slay him. So earlier on, Mahesura received a boon from Brahma that said he would only be able to be killed by a woman. So he's been invincible, destroying all the other gods in the heavens and taking over the three worlds. But here we are with the Divine Mother. And I love this teaching that turning to the Mother is where we can find our strength to overcome the thoughts that plague us and keep us from being constantly centered in the divine. So here's Mother throwing her net of devotion. She bound that great thought. After being bound in that great encounter, Mahesura left his form as a buffalo. Thereafter, he manifested in the form of a lion. In that condition, the Mother of the universe was prepared to cut off his head, but somehow he changed his form again to that of a man bearing a sword. Then the goddess instantly rained upon him a shower of arrows, and with sword and shield, she was ready to pierce him. Just then, he took the form of the king of elephants. With his trunk, he began to pull the huge lion of the goddess and to roar. But as he was pulling, she cut the trunk with his sword. Then that great thought again wore the body of a buffalo, and in that manner as before, with the inhalations and exhalations of his breath, he shook the three worlds with all that moves and not moves. In great rage, the Mother of the perceivable world, she who tears apart thought, again and again, drank an excellent spirit, which is the spirit and the juice of all the devotion that occurs in the world. There, in the strength and boldness of that wild ecstasy that filled her when she absorbed all of the devotion from all the devas and people of the world, that evil demon roared and with his horns threw mountains at she who tears apart thought. She began to pulverize those mountains with her arrows of speech, speaking in the ecstasy of devotion. Roar and roar, you fool, she said to Mahesur, for so long as I drink this spirit of devotion. Roar so much as you like. Your death is in my hands, and when I have finished drinking, soon the gods will be roaring. Thus speaking, the goddess leaped and ascended above the great thought, pressing down upon him and holding him with her foot. She struck him in the throat with her pike. The great ego, hit by the foot of the goddess, changed his form from his mouth, but was able to only free half of his body, and with her great strength, the goddess restrained that part as well. Even with half of his body coming out, the great thought continued to wage battle with the goddess. Then the goddess cut off his head with a great double-edged sword. Shrieking and crying, the remaining thoughts of that army ran away, and all the gods became exceedingly joyous. In great satisfaction, the gods joined the great seers in hymns of praise to the goddess, while the celestial chorus and nymphs sang and danced with joy. Jai Mahamaya Ki Jai, Chamunda Mata Ki Jai, Haryakandashvari Mata Ki Jai, Bhole Baba Ki Jai.